You're listening to the Flow Theory Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Wade Peary, and boy, oh boy, am I fired up to introduce our next guest, a Virginia Cavalier football legend who happens to be one of the most complete receivers in Virginia football history. Not only could this man catch the rock, but he is one of the best blocking receivers in Virginia football history. During his Virginia football career, Kris hauled in 162 catches for 2,190 yards and 9 touchdowns. His 162 catches put him 6th currently in Virginia football history, and his 2,190 receiving yards put him 5th currently in Virginia football history. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome the man that cemented himself in the hearts and minds of Virginia Cavalier football fans forever. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Kris.
No, thanks for having me, Wade. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm glad to have a great little sit down with
you. Yeah, man. Really excited that you could come on, man. I always loved watching you rock the visor for the Who's. It was always a classic look that you rocked, man. It was swag for days, man.
Hey, man, I'm a firm believer in you look good, you play good. You know what I mean? So I made sure I came dressed ready to play and brought that swag to the field. That's for certain.
Yeah, I agree, man. Kris, one of the biggest things about this podcast, I like talking to all the guys about their moments of flow and being in the zone. I know how Mike Vick in his 30 for 30, he talked about the moment when everything was moving in slow motion for him, even though the players were running at full speed. Was there ever any sort of, can you describe any sort of moments throughout your football career for us that you had like that, either at Virginia or high school?
Yeah, no, I definitely had. I've been fortunate enough to have some of those moments during my playing career. I think, one of the first moments I had was in the 10th grade, and really kind of let me know, like, man, I'm actually, pretty solid when it comes to, just playing receiver. That was my first game really at receiver, and I had an explosive game. But then in college, ironically enough, it was, my last game in the Chick-fil-A Bowl 2012 against Auburn. I think, for me, even though I didn't finish the game because I had a broken collarbone, that was probably the most flow I've had, and really just feeling like I was, unguardable, and they really didn't have an answer, and it was going to be, a career day. So, I think, for me, being in the zone is really just mentally understanding, like, whatever they throw at you from a matchup standpoint, they really don't have a chance. And I was fortunate enough to be in that situation. So, I'm sure all athletes have that same experience. So I just was lucky to get it a couple times.
Dude, it's funny that you mentioned the Chick-fil-A game versus Auburn. I want to talk about that game for a number of reasons, but man, I just rewatched that epic dime that Mike Rocco threw to you in the back of the end zone, like to put Virginia up 7-0 in that game. Walk me through that catch, because that was an absolutely awesome play.
No, I appreciate it, Wade. I think, for me, we had been game planning that play call, for the duration of bowl practice. And, Coach Laser, who was the offensive coordinator for us at the time, really was big on having shot plays, to call on different places in the field. And we have been working that for probably a month at that point. And we got the look that we needed to see. The safety played a little low in the cover 4 coverage. The safety was a little low, so I made sure I gave, the cornerback a good outside stick. And, as you mentioned before, man, it was a perfect ball. And for me, it was more, securing the catch through the dive, because, the last thing I wanted to do was not catch it. So I made sure that, I brought it home, and, fortunately it was a good kind of launch point for us during that game and really set the momentum early.
That game, the atmosphere leading up to that game, Kris, I've been a Virginia fan since I was 7 years old. I'm 36 now, but I have to admit that atmosphere before the Chick-fil-A bowl game to this day, Kris, was the best I have ever seen in my life out of any Virginia fan base. Like literally, I was staying in the downtown, the Marriott Marquis in downtown Atlanta, and I will just never forget all of our fans days before the game were chanting, "Let's go Wahoos" in the lobby, and they were high-fiving us on the escalator. I was like, this is what I'm talking about, people.
Yeah, there you go. And I think, good, fortunately we got some good leadership with Mendenhall and, a good group of players. So I think it's only going to build from here. I was, I witnessed, my first year was coming in 2007 when we had our trip to the Gator Bowl. So I witnessed, some of our glory days as far as recent history. And then some of the rough patches, where we only won 3 or 4 games. And then saw what it took to, rebuild under London and get us back into a winning program. So I've seen a little bit of everything when it came to UVA football, but I'm glad we, we as a team could to create that type of environment, but obviously we can't do it without the fans.
Yeah, I'm convinced, Kris, there's something about our fans in Atlanta. I don't know what it is, man, but those fans are like the most diehard Virginia football fans that I've ever been around. Like, I wanted to be like, man, we need to bring you guys to Scott Stadium every weekend because, God, they were just the passion and the energy for Virginia football to this day. I mean, that trip, I talked to so many other Virginia fans, and it was, it sucks we didn't win the game, but the atmosphere and everything, just being in that game and like that stadium was just electric, man. I'll never forget it. And all of our fans, it just brings back a lot of good memories for me.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk to you about your high school recruitment, Kris. I'm always fascinated with the high school recruitment process and, how guys go through it. I know you're from Richmond area and you only had a couple offers coming out of high school. My question for you is, were you just Virginia the whole way or, just walk me through your recruitment process a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, one of the main things I wanted to do, with a college that I chose was stay pretty local, to Virginia. So early in the recruiting game, I narrowed it down to Virginia Tech, and Maryland. In my history, Matoka High School down in Chesterfield County, James Ferrier went to my high school, Byron Thweet went to my high school, who both ended up playing ball at UVA and playing professionally.
Oh yeah, those guys are legends, man.
Both in the NFL and in NFL Europe. So for me, my first game, I think I went not even on an official visit, was in the 10th grade after my 10th grade season when they played Florida State at home. When Marcus Higgins was the quarterback and they had a big upset there. So for me, that was my first college, real Power 5 college football game that I went to out in the 10th grade. So I already had somewhat of I guess a biased opinion of where I wanted to go play football, just because that environment was, as you mentioned, I don't think there's many places that have fans, like UVA does. And, it was definitely one of those things I'll never forget. But, it came down to, I did a visit out to Virginia Tech, Maryland as well. And, at the time, Maryland, I wanted to wear Nike gear. I had been wearing it all through high school, and Maryland was, still is heavy in Under Armour. So I was like, I don't think I can make that transition. Under Armour. So, they kind of narrowed them out to Virginia Tech. And, I definitely felt more at home at UVA and had a better relationship with the coaches and, had some conversation with the incoming class as well. So I felt like it was definitely the right fit. And I definitely don't regret, anything in the process because, they definitely made sure that, everything was smooth. And, as far as bringing it to the family, I think my class was, pretty welcome when we arrived. So was all a good, a great experience for me.
Yeah, I remember your recruitment pretty vividly, actually. I just remember Mike Groh absolutely loved you. He mentioned you a lot, and there were a ton of articles on you on the Virginia recruiting websites because it felt like there was a pretty good chance you were coming to UVA all along. And we were all just really excited to get you because I just remember following your career and everything. And Mike Groh just gushed about it. I mean, I remember how I feel like Mike Groh spent a lot of time recruiting you. Is that true? Was he your main recruiter?
Yeah, he was my main recruiter, and shout out to Mike Groh. I think from a really just shooting it to you straight, let you know what some of the expectations are, what they expect from you, as a player on the team and in the classroom. I think he made it very clear. And for me, it was an honor, number one, because I had went to a camp at UVA that summer before my senior year, and got a chance to just mix and mingle with some of the staff, not in a in a visit or next level conversation, but just be around the program and see how things were operating. Ended up winning MVP of the camp. I had definitely been one that I was not gonna lie, they were the out front favorites, and nobody really met that type of feel. And just the program was going, I saw a trajectory arc that I really wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, one game that I really want to talk about, the 2011 FSU game, Kris. That was a fascinating game for a number of reasons.
Oh yeah.
Florida State was number 25 in the country. Virginia had never beaten Florida State until this game. And the game was such an emotional roller coaster, dude. I almost had a freaking stroke after this game. Like, dude, me and my dad were watching that game at home, and it was just so nuts because we stopped them on 4th down. Then we had the face mask penalty. And then Dustin Hopkins, who was one of the most reliable kickers in all of college football at the time. I was just like, there's no fucking way he's going to miss this. And I swear to you, dude, the kick, when you watch that again on TV, it looks like it goes right over the upright. I'm like, I thought it was in. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe we lost this game. And then I looked at the refs. And they signaled no good. I couldn't believe it, dude. What an emotional
the crazy part about that game was that they had 2 chances at that field goal. The first one they missed, they said that it was somebody on defense was illegally calling the snap count out.
That's right. And
they moved the ball. Yeah, they moved the ball 5 yards closer, and they kicked it again. I mean, we had already, when he missed the first one, most of the team had already ran in the locker room and was celebrating. They had to literally call us back out of the locker room for them to line it up and kick it again. So, from a player standpoint, you're talking about a roller coaster of emotion. I mean, you got a team, you got to watch them attempt the game-winning field goal 2 times in a row. And the second one being 5 yards closer. Trust me. I mean, it's a gut wrencher, man. So I know I can understand how you and your family was feeling watching that one, because trust me, the feeling was mutual to us on the sideline. Like, it was definitely, it was close as you can get.
Yeah.
No word about it. It was a battle, man. It was a battle.
Walk me through that final drive when Mike Rocco led you guys down in there and Kevin Parks punched it in. That was one of the most epic drive of Mike Rocco's career here. And like, man, it was just an amazing drive. I mean, he was locked in.
Yeah, I think, for us as an offense, another tip of the cap to Coach Laser, I think in our preparation, we always prepare at full speed, pressure situations, everything had, down and distance. So we really had, and fortunately for us at UVA during those times, the defense was always, really solid, and had a ton of playmakers. So for us, it was the epitome of, still, iron sharp as iron, and really just kind of bumping heads every day at practice, really creating that resilience, because, that game was a dogfight. That game was a slugfest throughout the majority of the game. And, for us, when we got the ball, we didn't have a doubt that we were going to score. We felt like we had prepared. Our strength coach had us in shape. We had the program. We knew we had, as I mentioned before, those shot plays that we hadn't called yet, that were, specific type of situations. So we knew that we, hadn't shot all of our shots, and we had some tricks up our sleeves. And, I think that, as you mentioned, for Mike, for KP, for really the offense as a whole, that was a great drive, and really just for us, just having that type of resilience to go ahead and punch it in. I think it really kind of kept us on the up and up when it came to, just our thoughts as far as producing as an offense. Because we beat Miami, I think, the week right after that in Miami.
Yeah,
so,
I think you're right.
Yeah, so it was definitely one of the peak points of our season, and confidence was sky high. Obviously after we got that win on the road there.
Yeah, dude, that win was something else. Like, just that pass by Rocco to Tim Smith across the middle was fucking epic. Like, oh my gosh, that was such a pretty ball.
Yeah, I keep in touch with Tim all the time, man. And I tell you, us as a wide receiver group, we really challenge each other, mentally and physically each day to be the best version of ourselves. If there was anybody kind of slacking, anybody not giving 100%, people were calling each other out. And I think that, Tim coming in a few years after, I did, he had the same type of work ethic and drive. The same with Dontrell and Matt Snyder and Derek Jennings. I mean, we all kind of were similar in our approach towards the game. So I think that's why the offense, along with the, offensive line being able to, provide some time and the quarterback development between Rocco, Verica, and Jamil, the whole game. I think internally as an offense, we really held each other accountable. So that's always a great thing.
Yeah, that offensive line, it's good that you mentioned that. That 2011 offensive line for Virginia football, quite honestly, streaking along recently did it all decade team. To me, you would have to put that whole offensive line as a unit, as the best offensive line of the entire decade for Virginia football. I mean, that offensive line was just loaded. All those guys, what was it? All five guys started all the games throughout the season.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably the most cohesive group I've seen, in a long time. And those guys were close within the group, which made it even more kind of powerful on game day. So, yeah, I mean, we just had a Zoom call with a lot of those guys, Big A, Big Mo, O'Day, the whole gang there, Mahota, and really just kind of just talked it up and, just had some of these, just memories in terms of some of the locker room moments and, games on the road and, just kind of just those things that, really keep us together as brothers and, as a family. So it's always good to circle back with the group.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the 2010 Duke game. Dontrell Inman had the performance of a lifetime. That game was absolutely insane. He made a catch. It kind of reminded me of one of them that Randy Moss made where both Duke defenders kind of collided right as DI caught the ball. Like, he was just an absolute savage that game.
Yeah, and I think, it goes to say what we talked about earlier, is having one of those, in the zone moments. I feel like he was in the zone the whole game. That Duke game on the road was, the epitome of a shootout. I think the final score was like 50-something to 40-something. It was something high up there.
Yeah.
But, as an offense, we knew, Dontrell is definitely a high point receiver, where anything that's up in the air, you're going to have trouble kind of stopping them from, climbing the ladder and going to get it. And Duke's cornerbacks that year were pretty small. So we knew, in jump ball situations, I like to play up there a little bit as well. But we knew up in jump ball situations that, we had a good chance in one-on-one situations to come down with the ball. So Dontrell, I mean, he literally did it all that game. I mean, we're talking, high pointing the ball, jumping over people, run after the catch, catching screens and, finding blocks and getting up the seam to, just making tough contested catches throughout. I think for Mark, For Dontrell, I think I can't remember what everybody else did, but I know that was the single season. I think he went for about 270, 275 or 276. I mean, as a receiver, you're glowing. Some would say you definitely highlighted it at that point. So yeah, I mean that's one of those moments, man. And like I said, me and Dontrell was real close that season. Really just kind of pushing each other as well. And trust me, I let him know, like, hey man, you got me that game, though. You outperformed me in a major way. So yeah, he's definitely a good friend of mine.
Yeah, Dontrell, you could tell early on Al Groh was really gushing about Dontrell Inman from the second he set foot on Virginia's campus. You really knew he was going to be a big-time player for us. Quite honestly, I was very surprised that it took so long for teams to realize that he had the talent to be in the NFL, because he spent a few years in CFL, and then the Chargers finally gave him a shot, and he's been pretty solid, and it's been good to see him in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I knew he always had the talent. It's all about being in the right place at the right time. And I think, that happened for him. He stayed kind of, kept his head down, kept working, and it paid off. He's definitely NFL caliber talent. So I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Talk to me about your career post UVA, Kris. Like, how exactly did that go for you?
Yeah. So, I finished up my season there at Chick-fil-A Bowl. I suffered a broken collarbone, so it kind of put me a little bit behind when it came to training for pro day and combine invites and things of that nature. I had a decline just based on my inability to really train to be at my best. But I had I had a solid pro day out at UVA, and started training with some guys out in Arizona. Getting ready for OTAs and rookie mini camp. Ended up signing a free agent deal with the Jets on draft day, and went that route. I showed up to rookie mini camp, made it through. I was still a little dinged up from the season, so I had to rehab and get things right during rookie mini camp, and then when OTAs and training camp started. Just working my way up the depth chart. Just trying to really get, a sense of, where I fit in on the team. Working a lot of special teams, and some, really just, just being, trying to understand, like, NFL is a lot more fast paced than college. So really just understanding the flow and how things were working. Getting my grass wet, but get my feet wet. But I did end up tweaking my back again, which I did. Coming out of high school, I had a slip disc that had pinched the nerve, and re-injured that during that mini camp, and really just had to hang it up from there. I wasn't able to really be back at that peak athletic performance that I needed to be at. So I had to make a transition since I already had the surgery coming out of high school. They didn't want to go in and operate again, so. It was a tough decision to make, but I think, for the longevity, and really just being, healthy and thinking about long term, I think it was the right move to make.
Yeah, sounds good, Kris. Sometimes there are some guys like, God, you watch Frank Gore now, like, God, that guy's torn both of his ACLs. he's still in the NFL, man.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That guy's an absolute machine. At the running back position, it is unheard of what Frank Gore is doing.
Yeah, it's definitely man. Hats off to him. I think
he's like something out of outer space, man.
Yeah, some people got it, man. I tell you, I'm surprised about people lasting that long. It's toll on your body. That's to say the least.
Yeah. Who are your favorite NFL teams that you like following, Kris?
Well, yeah, I'm a Steelers fan. I've been a Steelers fan. Pretty much my entire life. As I mentioned before, James Ferrier, he grew up right up the street from me growing up. Played in the same little league team. So when he got to the league, I essentially just started following him. So I followed him. I started following the team, and I usually catch 2 or 3 Steelers games, or try to at least, each year. But I've always been a Steelers fan my entire life. How about you, Wade?
My favorite team. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm really have a favorite team. I really love Barry Sanders growing up, and I really loved the Lions when they had Herman Moore, Barry Sanders, Scott Mitchell, Johnny Morton, and they had Robert Porcher. Man, like I used to love Barry Sanders, dude. I have a huge fat head of Barry Sanders, and I have like a Oklahoma State painting of Barry Sanders.
I mean, what do you think about his career, man? I think, him retiring when he did.
I think, it was kind of tough to swallow, but I think long-term wise, I think it was smart for Barry, and I mean, Barry, he never really took a lot of hits, so I think for him, you listen to him and Calvin Johnson talk about the end of their careers. It kind of makes me sad as a Lions fan because it's all about the front office, and their unwillingness to spend money to win. So that part about it, it makes me really sad. And you really side with the players in that aspect. You know what I mean? Like, why should you risk your body, for more money when, when the people in the front office don't really want to win? And I mean, if you believe that the people that are the owners, that they don't want to win and they're not going to trade you, then, quite frankly, hanging it up is your only option. You know what I mean? And Barry and Calvin are both just really classy people that don't really want to, cause a fuss. Some players, they love causing a fuss, but Calvin and Barry are just the opposite of that. And I think it's kind of, I look at why both of them quit. And, Calvin Johnson was a little quieter about, it didn't come out until a couple years after he retired, about like why, but I mean, damn, Calvin Johnson also took more of a beating. Like, God, I mean, he had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, he always stayed pretty dinged up. I mean, now you can add, I guess, Matt Stafford to the list. What is he?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Matthew Stafford. I hear all the stories about him having all the fractures in his back. And I'm like, man, I feel like the reporters and everything are not making that like serious enough. Like to me, that sounds career ending. Does it not? Like, Jesus.
No. There's a lot of nerve canals in that back and that spine area. So, I think for especially for franchise quarterbacks, I think now players have enough power to really make that call, whether they're going to play or not. In terms of the longevity, because, some people are just hanging it up, just as far as their health, just not trying to have, too many concussions, like, really just kind of taking the next step, which I'm sure NFL owners hadn't seen before. You had people really playing until they couldn't play anymore. But now some people who are essentially in the prime of their physical life, hanging it up to make sure that they stay away from like CTE and different, post-NFL things, I think, empowers the players a little bit more, man. So they have more to bargain with, at the table, when they're talking about these contract extensions and, new deals, So I think it's starting to come around to being more in the players' favor here moving forward.
Speaking of new deals, Chris, Patrick Mahomes just signed a deal, 10 years, 450 million, 140 million guaranteed. Talk to me about how ridiculous. I'll tell you my thoughts on the contract and then I'll let you go. I think this is my theory on, listen, Pat Mahomes deserves all the money in the world. He's incredible. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. There's no question in my mind. And anyone that actually knows football, like it's obvious that Pat Mahomes is going to the Hall of Fame. But the thing with any franchise quarterback is they got to understand the less you take, the more pie there's going to be for the franchise to have other people around you. Now, listen, once again, I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it, but in order to make it easier for your franchise to win, you're probably going to take a little bit of a haircut because, I mean, quite frankly, I don't know. Like,
no, it's definitely a push and pull. I think, for Patrick Mahomes, he's definitely, he's in a different, I guess, age bracket, than like a Lamar Jackson, and because he's been in the league now for 3 years, he's not considered, as volatile, as one of these younger guys who hasn't really, been at that level of production. You're talking about Patrick Mahomes the last 2 years. I mean, I don't think you can get more productive from the quarterback position, and then you add on top of that, you have one of the most explosive offenses out there, and then you add on top of that a Super Bowl win. Oh, and you add on top of that a comeback Super Bowl win. I think he cashed out at the right time when the front office is thinking, look, we got to keep this guy here because I know any other team that's desperate for a quarterback will throw the kitchen sink at him. Let's go ahead and lock it down. Make sure he knows that, we're committed to him for a long period of time. Let's go ahead and give him this baseball money. I think that was the Kansas City's, thoughts, and, for them, I mean, when was the last time they were this relevant as a franchise? I feel like they got to keep on riding while it's hot, and turn into an American team if they can. I think that's what they're looking to do.
Yeah, you're right, dude. I tell you what, I was super happy for Andy Reid. Really love Andy Reid, all the schemes that he runs. He's really just, he's an innovative guy. And not only that, you can he's such a great coach because I remember there was one game, I want to say it was at Denver, where Mahomes was struggling a little bit. And Andy Reid, he didn't yell at him. He sat down beside him on the bench and he talked it out with him and he tried to calm him down. And that's a big part of what makes Andy Reid one of the greatest football coaches ever to live. One of the great Andy Reid quotes that I'll never forget, man, is when he goes, "A quarterback is like a tea bag. You never know what you got until you put it in hot water."
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's so true, man, because until a quarterback shows you that he can throw under pressure, he's not. I mean, you can still be a very good quarterback and not throw under pressure, but the truly elite ones can handle all the bullets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Patrick Mahomes, he handled them, man. The bullets were coming in that Super Bowl win. And, I think as teams kind of knew what type of quarterback, I think his intangibles, definitely earned him that, that biggest contract ever. And I think that his arm strength and just the way he plays the game, I think is going to be, something that other quarterbacks and other teams are going to try to, add as far as another dimension of the offense, because the way he extends plays and get creative on his, his throwing alleys and, keeping his eyes downfield, I think, hey, every quarterback's going to have a little bit of Patrick Mahomes-ish in them moving forward, because he can move a little bit too. So, I think we're in a golden age of quarterbacks here between Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. We're talking about some really kind of generational talents coming through these franchises, and I think that fortunately the franchises recognize their talent level and are starting to get creative in ways to really highlight some of the things that they can do. But I think last year it was just a reflection of just how good some of these guys were. So, I'm excited, man. Hopefully, they can turn things around, with this coronavirus and let's get some action on the field. But, I think we're going to be in for, a good treat here moving forward. And just in terms of talent and, who's out there on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree, man. I tell you what, Tyreek Hill is just must-see TV, man. That guy, my God, I'll never forget. Damian Williams had a breakaway run. He was ahead of Tyreek Hill by about 10 yards, and Tyreek Hill literally sprints, catches up to him, and passes him before he gets to the end zone.
Yeah, speed kills, man. Speed kills. And I think Tyreek Hill is a prime example of, when you put speed in the right places, it almost seems unguardable. And I think that, Kansas City has just enough packages to really, highlight just how fast he is and, get him in the return game. He's going to be, he's going to be somebody we're talking about for the next 5 to 10 years. That's for certain, because, speed's always going to kill. And he has the most that I've seen last year. That's for certain.
You know, plus with Patrick Mahomes being able to launch the ball, all you have to do is say, you know, hey, Pat, just launch it 50 yards and let Tyreek run under it. Because there is no one catching that guy in a foot race.
No, not even close. And, you know, he's in the perfect situation. You know, having one of the most, you know, probably the strongest arm strength out of a quarterback, you know, this year. And then somebody as innovative as Patrick Mahomes who's throwing no-look passes. I mean, that's, you know, you're talking about a match made. That just screams big plays. You know, not to mention one of the best tight ends in the game. So you really got all three levels of the field kind of covered with a smart quarterback, a tight end to work the middle, and then one of the fastest receivers. You know, you're going to be a nightmare for defensive coordinators and as far as prepping for that. So.
And now they got add Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the mix.
Yeah, exactly. And now you got a bruising running back, you know, who's going to be able to give you 20 carries a game. I mean, that's like I said, they got a lot of young talent, you know, and I think that, you know, with Mahomes, you know, maybe he'll restructure the deal as, you know, as people's contracts start to expire and trying to keep people together. But as of right now, I mean, they probably got one of the younger teams, and one of the more talented teams at each position. So, you know, they got people that's been there before, and then they got a lot of young energy, you know, that really thrive. I think for me, you know, being a Steelers fan, you know, there's a ton that we need to address as well. And I think the quarterback position is something that we got to figure out, you know, the direction that we're going to have. You know, as Big Ben gets older, you know, it's just a lot of question marks, I think, as a franchise that we got to start to address here before it's just too late. You know, I was hoping we was going to pull the trigger on Cam Newton, but you see Bill Belichick beat us to that. So,
yeah. You know, now that you mentioned Cam Newton, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on Cam Newton, Kris. What are your thoughts on Cam Newton with Bill Belichick?
I mean, it's you know, to me, you know, I thought that from a chess pieces move, you know, that seemed like something, you know, right up Bill Belichick's lane, you know, where he would go ahead and make a play on just the talent. You know, saying, look, this guy's talented. I want to have a roster full of talent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead in the fold. But, you know, I think Cam is one of those type of players that really just wants to be his best at all times. And so I honestly think that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't think they're going to get along. You know,
yeah, I'm one of those people, Kris. I think Belichick will cut his ass before it even comes into fruition.
But at the same time, I mean, Bill Belichick brought in Randy Moss as well. You know, Randy, you could have said the same thing about Randy Moss, who, you know, wants the ball all the time and this and that. I mean, the question is, can Cam Newton still play?
Yeah,
and I think he can, and I think that, you know, the willingness for Cam Newton to, you know, remain competitive. I think that they'll be able to have some synergy off of that, and really just kind of start talking X's and O's. I don't really see them having a lot of, you know, side talk as far as what they're doing over the weekend, but I think that Cam Newton will realize that he's in a, you know, unique position where he's coming from the coach who coached, you know, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, for his entire career. I mean, why would you not pick his brain? You know, why would you not see how he how he coached Tom Brady to be, you know, as effective as he was for so long? You know, so I think that Cam is in a position where he's been humbled, you know, just based on the process in his free agency run. I mean, he'll come in with a student's cap on, and really just try to learn different ways to be productive at the quarterback position. So, you know, I'm excited for Cam, man. I knew he was going to get signed. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but, you know, I'm glad that he's under a good organization that's really going to keep keep a tight ship, you know, when it comes to, you know, mindsets kind of wandering and people kind of getting selfish. So I'm excited for him. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. It's certainly a fascinating move, and I see why it's grabbed all the headlines. A couple of concerns I have with Cam Newton are this. One is I worry about his foot. We have not seen the Liz Frank injury, you know, as well as anyone, that the Liz Frank injury can be incredibly nagging football injury. We have not gotten to watch Cam Newton run post-surgery. That's one big concern that I have. Another one is the video where he just posted, he said, I'm tired of being humble. I mean, I don't know. To me, like, Cam Newton is like he doesn't really embrace the Patriot way. You know what I mean? And like that video is like the opposite of the Patriot way, you know? So I will be very interested to see if with Cam Newton with the YouTube channel, I'll be honest, with a lot of the players, and I mean, listen, I'm all for freedom of speech and everything. You know, I think if all players want to have a YouTube channel, go right ahead. But to me, if I was like a PR guy for a player, I would be like, listen, you know, players like they sometimes it's nice for you to like go away for a little bit. You know, Michael Jordan was really good about that. Like in The Last Dance, that's why like his documentary now, you know, like so much of that stuff like we never seen, you know what I mean? It's kind of like if you show yourself all the time, people will kind of get a little sick of you, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
It's you know, it's all up to the player as far as what they want to do. But I think that MJ, that was part of what makes MJ is he was so smart about just staying out of the spotlight, and you leave people wanting more. So like once Cam Newton suits up, you're going to be like, man, I can't wait to watch Cam play. Or, you know, his post-game press conference. I can't wait to hear Cam talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I see your point there. I mean, and I think, you know, it's a different day and age now. I think that, you know, the more, you know, I think, you know, Antonio Brown's a good example. You know, he stayed in the headlines, he stayed in the news. Different, you know, players have different mentalities nowadays, you know, where it's more of branding. You know, they want to make sure that their brand is getting recognized and their brand is getting exposure, you know, so they kind of conflate the two where it's like, yeah, I understand I'm a piece of a team, but at the end of the day, I'm going home to my wife, my kids. I got to make sure that my brand is, you know, getting exposure as well, you know. So I think it's you know, some players approach it differently. But at the same time, I mean, it's just it's a different generation, man. When you're talking about streams of revenue and, you know, ways that, you know, players really, I guess, bring home the bacon, you know, so.
Yeah, I will tell you, Cam Newton at Auburn, the funny thing is he finished his career at Auburn the year before you guys played Auburn in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. And his highlights, that 2010 season, I mean, absolutely incredible. Like that. What was it? The pass that he made, he was rolling to his right off his back foot against Kentucky. God, what was that? Like a 50-yard bomb at the end of the half. And then how about the play against South Carolina where Cam Newton literally jumps from the fucking 10-yard line? I have never seen that. He jumped all the way. It was either the 10 or the 5, but to watch a guy take off from that far out and land in the end zone, that was unreal, man.
He's an unreal talent. And I think that, you know, everybody needs a little Cam Newton reappearance, you know, because, I mean, the game missed him last year. And I think it's, you know, his style of play hasn't been, you know, really I mean, having a bruiser style runner as a quarterback, I mean, that's pretty different.
Yeah, he's definitely a bruiser, Chris. I forget the volume of hits that he's taken, but he's taken like the most hits of any quarterback in the past, I forget how many years, but he has taken a massive beating. And I mean, in his defense, there was that Broncos game. He got absolutely leveled by, was it Von Miller? Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
He got killed. I mean, and they weren't flagging some of those hits. It's like, guys, like, you're just leaving Cam out to dry. Like, I mean, God, he was getting destroyed.
Yeah, and to Cam's defense, I think when you're a bigger, you know, athletic quarterback, you know, it's kind of like, you know, LeBron getting fouled in the NFL. They're not going. I mean, in NBA, they're not going to call all those fouls the same as they would on Steph Curry or James Harden. You know, because they think, oh, LeBron can take it. Or LeBron can, you know what I mean? So I think that's the same, you know, Cam suffering from that same type of, oh, he's big and strong. Like, he can take it. He can take it. You know, and I think, you know, I think this time off was needed for Cam, man. He's been doing it, you know, year in and year out. I think he needed a time to, you know, just mentally take a break and physically just rehab and get everything right. And hopefully the foot's back strong, man. Like I said, he's one of my must watch coming out of this year and see exactly what he's going to do out there on the field.
Yeah, I think everyone who follows the NFL is certainly fascinated to see how he does. I was never really sold on Jarrett Stidham. I mean, he threw a really pretty ball when he was coming out, but I was just not drinking the Jarrett Stidham Kool-Aid. I saw, a lot of reporters this summer were saying the Patriots are committed to Jarrett Stidham for a really long time. Like, get out of here, guys. Like, I'm not buying. I am not drinking the Jarrett Stidham Kool-Aid.
I don't think anybody in the organization was. And, you don't go from Tom Brady to Jarrett Stidham and not have anybody turn their heads and figuring out what's going on. So I think they knew they were going to bring in a big name. And I think they got the right one. It's going to be a different system, obviously, going from Tom Brady to Cam, as far as style of play. But I think, maybe having Cam throw some of those shorter, timing type routes, might be a benefit for him. So we'll see, man. Like I said, there's a lot of questions up in the air this year in terms of how the season's going to really look. A lot of moves happening. And, we got Tom Brady with the Buccaneers with Gronkowski. Like, who would have thought that at the end of last year? It's just a crazy season.
Yeah.
Already.
It's going to be interesting to see how Brady fits with all those receivers, Godwin, Evans. I mean, Jesus Christ, one of the best tight end duos I've ever heard of. OJ Howard and Rob Gronkowski. My God, that is terrifying.
That's some, and you got to think about it. Some big offense last year was putting up big numbers. With throwing a ton of picks. I mean, they still are, one of the top offenses in the league based on yards per game. So you throw in somebody who's a little bit more cautious, with the ball and can cut back on some of those turnovers. You're talking about a playoff team, no questions asked.
Oh, Super Bowl team, I'd say. It's going to be fascinating to watch them. It'll probably between the Bucs, Saints, Chiefs. Trying to think of who else I would put in that mix, but I want to talk about the college game a little bit more, Kris. I'm curious one thing I've been asking a lot of the players that have come on the show, and I'm always fascinated to hear your guys' answers about this. What are your thoughts on players getting paid in college?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy one. Me personally, I've always felt like, players definitely should be compensated during the season. I know some rules have changed, since I played and, while I was playing, some rules were changing. But, I think that from a collegiate athlete standpoint who dedicates, as much time and as much, energy into the sport for the school, I think it's only right to have something that, from a monetary standpoint, that players can take with them. Because, if you get hurt or if you get, injured or whatever, anything that can happen, during whatever sport that you're playing, I think that when you leave school, you still have those injuries, you still have those scars. And from a compensation standpoint, unless you make it in the NFL, you really, just kind of have to manage that on your own. You can't come back to the school and say, hey, I used to play here at this time. Like, you really just kind of, they essentially treat you like a king while you're there. And then it just ends right when you walk across the stage. So I think it leaves a lot of players with some issues that they really, maybe could have bypassed, if they had some type of compensation to really help, set themselves up and live a little bit more comfortably, post-college. I think it makes sense just for the sheer fact of the amount of revenue that, a lot of these big name players and programs are bringing to the university.
Yeah.
I mean, why are we not, compensating? If you sell that jersey, yeah, it might not have their name on the back, but everybody knows who,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's just a way for the schools to, really run like a capitalist, we're going to make as much money out of this thing as we can. And, let's keep these corners as tight as possible. So I think it's a long overdue. And I'm in full support of, college athletes getting paid.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely, Kris. That was one of the things that I didn't really think about that when I started this podcast, but honestly, talking to all you guys, like it really opened my eyes to that as a big issue. And it's really fun to hear you guys talk about it. And not only that, to hear the different thoughts from different guys just on all the different things. What are your thoughts on the Reggie Bush scandal, Kris? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that problem is just a result of what we just talked about. I think if players were compensated, they wouldn't have to go outside of I guess sanctioned behavior. I think that you signing your own name or you having something that you've worn that's owned by you or whatever the case may be, you selling that off as memorabilia to somebody. I never thought that was an appropriate reaction to the Reggie Bush scandal and how he was kind of moving, because at the same time, if he would have got hurt and God forbid a tragic injury and he wasn't able to play anymore, the value of that signature would have drastically went down. And I think that the same way that schools want to capitalize off of the players, as fast as they can, they get a big 5-star recruit, or they're going to be on all the programs that next season. You know what I mean? I think that it's not crazy for the player to think, look, I'm looking to be the number one pick in the NFL draft. Why would I not, sell some signatures here in college, to help out? Why not reach out to my agent and say, hey, look, man, we got this coming up. I don't think that should be considered like criminal behavior from.
Yeah, I agree completely, Kris. I think that the whole Reggie Bush situation, I've been talking to all the other players that have come on about that, and it's really just total bullshit, man. Like Reggie Bush earned that Heisman fair and square, and I love how they say that Reggie had to voluntarily give up his Heisman. Like, fuck you, like. That's one of the best awards in sports. Like, no one's going to voluntarily give up the Heisman Trophy. You know what I mean? You guys made him give up that award. Like, it really pissed me off, dude. The Reggie Bush situation. People will listen to this podcast, probably getting sick of hearing about it. But really, one of the biggest injustices of all of sports. Like, you make USC disassociate with the guy for 10 years? Like, give me a break, dude. That's so stupid. Like, everyone's just not going to magically forget that Reggie Bush went to USC. You know what I mean? Oh, gee, Kris, I forgot who won the Heisman. Like, can you, I forgot that Reggie Bush won the Heisman, dude. Like, you know what I mean?
Only one of the most electric college football players ever. Like, come on, man. Everybody knows Reggie Bush. You can't tarnish his legacy and his performance on the field. And I think that what they were trying to do with Reggie was make an example out of him to really show other college players, like, look, don't play with us. You know what I mean? Don't play with this money. Don't play with these pockets, because we'll come down with the hammer. And I think Chase Young missed the first 6 games or something this year. Ended up being the number 2 pick, number 1, the DN from Ohio State.
Yeah, number 2. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer, dude. Book it. That guy is fucking incredible, dude. That guy is Jesus. Yeah. What a freak. I mean, I hear his coaches even. I mean, that kid is destined for the Hall of Fame. I'm already getting his bronze ready. That dude is an absolute savage.
There you go. Yeah, and that's the thing. He missed 6 games because someone paid for a trip, that he ended up paying back before the season started. It's just like, for somebody who is single-handedly, Chase Young, obviously bringing in millions of dollars to the Ohio State football program and, checking all the boxes, hasn't got any, drug tests, failed, anything crazy, for him to essentially live a college life. Nobody, having a loan from somebody as a regular student wouldn't have been viewed as any type of issue, wouldn't even have made the front page. So I think that for a college athlete, they still have to live their lives outside of the football field and the classroom as well. And I think that, you can't really work a full-time job like some other college students because of your schedule. Why not, treat that college football team as your occupation and get compensated?
I really don't absolutely agree, Kris, 100%.
How they haven't made that change or how they made that jump, but I know it's going to be pretty complicated, just based on different tiers and different levels in college and maybe percentages. Who knows how they're going to figure it out? But I know it's something that's overdue, and it's creating a vacuum for those high tier quality athletes, to really start to say, okay, well, is it even worth me going to college? Like, should I just go and play, or go and train, or go do here, go there.
Go to the G League.
Yeah, exactly. Go to the G League, exactly. Which a lot of NBA players are doing. It's just I think it's going to push people away from coming into college with raw talent when they can say, look, I'm going to, train, get the best I can be, play in the CFL or whatever the case may be, and then come out as a number 1 draft pick because I have the same exposure. But I'll be able to make money throughout. Some people are going to look at that as a valuable option. So, I think they just have to address it on the front end before that becomes a reality for some players.
Yeah. Speaking of guys going pro, have you watched Amani Bates, the kid that just committed to Michigan State? Have you watched him?
Oh, yeah. He's a freak, man.
Dude, that kid is ridiculous, man. Dude, Amani Bates said that if he can go straight to the NBA out of high school, he's skipping Michigan State. And to be honest, after watching his highlights, I don't blame him one bit. He is ridiculous, bro.
Yeah, he is ridiculous. And, somebody told me about him 2000 February, I want to say, of last year. And it was like, man, you got to check out this Imani Bates. Like, this guy, he's the next LeBron. I was like, next LeBron? Like, come on.
Yeah.
You can't just throw that around willy-nilly. You're talking about a generational talent there. And I checked out the highlights, and I said, man, that's like playing against little kids.
Oh, yeah, dude. He's just schooling those guys. It looks like he's playing rec ball with those kids.
Yeah. He's going to be something to keep an eye on moving forward. But, I think with basketball, it's just a lot. I feel like there's a lot of talent that comes around, but they never really fully blossom, which is, why I think people should appreciate LeBron a little bit more than they do now, because you got to understand the hype that he came into the league with, and then how he delivered. He's going to 9 straight finals. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous when you think about, just a player and taking his team to those positions, and having that pressure coming into the league as a rookie straight out of high school. I think, you just got to tip the hat to LeBron, when we start talking about that, because, that's almost impossible to do as a high school kid, be able to physically dominate the game the way he did coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
I think it might be a slower transition just because of his size, but, he definitely has the potential to do so. I mean, he's only going to get better with time. So,
yeah. Amani Bates kind of reminds me of a more aggressive at the rim version of KD. He's got that 3 ball, and man, when he comes in to send it in, he sends it in with authority at the rim.
Yeah. KD. I mean, yeah, like I said, man, sports wise, we're in the golden little era between KD, Steph, LeBron, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I mean, we're talking great talent coming through, all sports. And I think that, I think that's one of the reasons why people kind of chomping at the bit for when things are going to get back to normal, because there's so many expectations, and things that, want to be seen, this new NBA setup out in Orlando and having like a new tournament stuff. I mean, what? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I've looked at the stuff with the bubble. They have like special grocery bags of food for everyone. They package like 5 meals in one little like grocery bag, and it's all like pre-packaged. So like that way they don't have people that have to like come back and forth with all the food. You just leave the bag of food and you choose. It's like taster's choice. They say for breakfast, they give you like, I think they said it was like oatmeal or an egg and cheese sandwich or like a bunch of other things.
Yeah. I mean, with the spike in cases going on now, man, I'm a little hesitant to let them go ahead and go with that, just because it's almost impossible to keep everything, sanitized. You have to check the security, where they're going at the end of the shift, and you have to check this, check that. The last thing I want is for a whole lot of celebrities, a whole lot of NFL players, NBA players, or whoever to get it and then have an event. Now, whole city has, I think they got to be a little bit smarter.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you, Chris. I think that a lot of people, myself included, I really want football to happen, but the reality, I've studied a lot of the different stuff about the coronavirus, and classic virology, dude. I just don't think it's going to happen. I know that's a hard pill for a lot of people out there to swallow, but it's just the reality of it, you know, and it's going to cost the country a lot of money. To me, the thing that amazes me, and I'm not going to get too much in politics, but the thing that amazes me is that our Congress has not already just gotten a huge bailout package for colleges across the country. Because think of the athletic departments and how football is the engine for the athletic department. What happens once you shut that engine off completely? I mean, it's going to be the biggest economic devastation that we've ever seen, man. I mean, like, Congress should already be building a package for all the colleges already. And the fact that they're not doing that, it shows me how incompetent and just how out of touch and just, God, I don't know. Politicians, the majority of them are just very unimpressive during this time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of colleges I heard are cutting programs already.
Yeah, UConn cut track, swimming. I know. I think Cincinnati cut some programs, but and you know that's even before football is not going. So like, I mean, just think of that. I mean, that's the crazy part because of no March Madness. So to me, the fact that Congress and all the people that are like stimulating the economy, the fact that they have not already, talked about these things is like, it's incredibly concerning because it's blatantly obvious. I mean, I said this months ago when this whole thing started, it's definitely a big issue that, Congress, you talk about the stimulus for just everyone that's working, just the everyday citizens, but you think of how much all the economies in all these college towns rely upon all the sports, like that. It's going to be the major devastation.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an impact that we're going to feel for quite some time. And, I think that, I know UVA reported, I want to say 2 days ago.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. I saw them report. I feel like it's going to be, give it a couple weeks, and I think they're eventually going to say that the commissioners recently are talking like they're going to move it to spring because they want to see how the NFL handles it. I'm like, everyone is just trying to pass the hot potato, Chris. No one really wants to just accept the reality that you want to post. There's really no great way to deal with it, but I'm not really sure what's going to happen. It's just a lot of unknowns.
That's the scary part too.
Yeah. Chris, one guy who just retired recently, and I want to talk to you about him. I meant to talk to Wally Lundy about him, but I want to hear your thoughts on Vince Carter and his basketball career because I loved watching VC play over the years. I want to hear about your memories of Vince Carter's top dunks. To me, I'm some of the number one, I look at these lists of Vince Carter's top dunks. And when I see number one, I don't see the Team USA dunk over Frederick Von Weiss when VC, he dragged his nuts on top of that guy's head and clear a 7-footer. To jump over a 7-footer and dunk on him the way that he did. And he was swinging his fist in the air, and he almost punched Kevin Garnett so hard in the face after that.
Yeah, he did. And fortunately for me, Vince Carter was, he was a game changer when it came to playing above the rim. I think that, for me, the Team USA dunk when he jumped over the 7-footer was huge. But for me, we used to play a lot of basketball on lowered rims so we can dunk on each other, and have, dunk contests and things of that nature. And, I know you remember the Vince Carter dunk contest when, he did the 360 windmill and then he did the arm in the rim. I think that those for somebody who dunking and playing, basically in Vince Carter type of air up there, with the rim being low. I think that those dunks alone, everybody tried. It was something that, dunk contest back then was must-see TV. Vince Carter was, must-see. I mean, he had some in-game, alley-oop windmill dunks that were just ridiculous. He's always been electrifying to watch. And I think, one of the things that people don't really notice or realize about Vince Carter is he's, top 10, maybe even top 5 now, and three-pointers made, throughout his career. So not only was he dunking on people, he was still knocking down threes. So, hats off to Vince Carter. I think that he's definitely one of those people where you can't talk about dunks in the NBA and not mention Vince Carter. It's just, he's one of those guys, kind of like Randy Moss in football. Like, you can't talk wide receivers and dunking on people on the football field without talking Randy Moss. And I think it's the same with Vince Carter on the basketball court.
Absolutely, dude. Vinsanity. That dunk contest, the 360 windmill, man. I mean, that was it's one of those moments where if you're a big sports fan, where you were when you saw that. Like, I was just like, holy shit. Like,
yeah, that's
dude.
When he was, yeah, that's when you knew he was there.
BC. I mean, just being able to spin like that in the air. I was fascinated I love watching Team USA basketball because I'm not the hugest LeBron fan, and I'm not the hugest Melo fan, but on Team USA, I love watching all those guys work together because they work like, Carmelo Anthony, to me, I'll tell you about Carmelo. Carmelo, to me, when his head hits his pillow, once he's done with his NBA career, you can legitimately ask that guy, like, did you absolutely leave it all on the floor? And you look at his Team USA tape and you'll say no, because he played such good defense on Team USA and he rebounded. It's like Melo, like you have no interest in those things, but Team USA basketball is always so much fun to watch, dude. But Carmelo, LeBron, and I remember the Redeem team, man, watching Kobe with D Wade and LeBron. And when Kobe hit that 3 against Spain in Spain, and not only that, he hit him with the silencer after he hit it. I was like, dude, I love you forever for that. That was so sweet.
Yeah, we lost one of the greatest for Kobe, and I think that his approach to the game was contagious, man. Like, a lot of people just, his intensity is what I feel like what's needed in the NBA today. Just somebody who's willing to compete, at that level day in, day out. I think the game's missing it, and those dream teams, I think they're doing something way different with it now. A lot of the superstars aren't even playing, but. It's. I think they get blown out. I think they got blown out this year.
I think you're right. I'd have to look back at it because sometimes not all the guys go to play the FIBA games that are like a year before the Olympics. But yeah, I'll never forget the look on Allen Iverson's face when they get a bronze. They got a bronze, and AI was so pissed, man. The look on his face, he's just like, I'm never going to hear the end of this, like Allen Iverson was so salty.
No, I believe it, man. I think, he's one of those people too. He just want to compete, want to win. He's not really into the, I guess the sideline antics. He's just trying to, lace them up and see who's the best.
Keep going.
No, that was it.
Allen Iverson, have you watched Allen Iverson's high school highlights, Chris? He was one of the best. His Virginia high school football highlights are incredible.
Yeah, he was, I wonder what he would have been at quarterback, man. You think about his elusiveness. They're talking about him as a DB as well. I mean, Allen Iverson, I could see that being a real problem out here at corner, for opposing court or a receiver, because he's going to be fast, and then he's going to be quick as well. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough matchup. A lot of these players, we're, multi-sport athletes in high school, some in college, and I'm just, I'm always curious to see, like, what if LeBron would have played tight end, at Ohio State or something, and then went into the league. I mean, we're talking 6'8", 260, really out here just barreling down on people, dunking on people in the red zone. I mean, that's pretty nasty sight.
Yeah, Allen Iverson, like his heart, if you can measure heart, he would certainly be top 10 all time. And that guy, like his practice rant was always one of my favorites. We talking about practice, man.
Yeah, no, that was only AI in those days, man. Will tell you, will shoot it to you straight like that. Only AI.
The way he left it all out on the floor every single game, I will forever respect Allen Iverson for that. Some people, I mean, sure, he hogged the ball a lot, but it's like, when you're the best player on your team, you kind of have to,
Yeah.
It's like he had Eric Snow, like.
Exactly. He took that 60 team to the finals, which was crazy. I think he dropped 40 in game 2 or something like that. I mean, come on now. You gotta let AI do AI. He's the reason they got you there. So
yeah. Who were some of the best corners that you faced during your football career, Kris?
Oh, yeah. So on the team, I feel like, on the team, I played against a bunch between Chris Cook coming in on the team. He was solid at corner. Rashad Dolan was solid at corner. Chase Minifield was solid at corner. So
what about other guys, other players on other teams in the ACC?
Okay. I think my first real matchup, was Darius Butler out at UConn. When he was there, I mean, he was pretty locked down. Xavier Rhodes down at Florida State was probably, I would say, my toughest matchup coming out of high school because he was so long. Like, he was, 6'2", long arms, quick, played into the boundary, so he didn't have to cover much ground. But yeah, I would have to say Xavier Rhodes is probably the toughest matchup coming out of college. Everybody else, I felt like I had their number. The best way to put it, I felt like I had their number. So, it's just, yeah, I definitely would say those two guys.
Yeah, you certainly had a lot of people's numbers throughout your Virginia career. One thing Bill Lazor commented on in the Georgia Tech game, 2011, after that Georgia Tech game, he commented on your blocking in that game and how awesome of a blocker you were. Is that something that you really worked on throughout your Virginia football career? I know I read a quote from you, how you said your brothers really would be really rough with you, like when you were growing up. And that was like, you were always just kind of tough. That was kind of like your thing. So
yeah,
talk about that a little bit.
No, you hit it on the nail. For me, I grew up, I had 2 older brothers, and I was the youngest boy. And, we used to always play outside in the neighborhood and, really just stay outside as much as we could just to, get out the house, play football, basketball, baseball, whatever the case may be. So from a toughness standpoint, me and my older brother used to, fight, wrestle, argue over just about everything on a daily basis. It was seldom that a day would go by when we didn't get into some type of tussle or altercation. So for me, I always kind of grew up really having to fight and scratch and claw for what I felt like, I deserved. So, for me in sports, I really just translated that into, every battle was a battle that I'm going to win. So whether it was a run play, whether it was a pass play, I knew what my responsibility was, and I knew that I wasn't going to lose. So if I had to, push crack on the safety, I'm going to push crack on the safety. I'm not going to miss. I'm not going to whiff. I'm not going to give them anything to look at on film and be like, okay, you didn't do your job. So for me, I always took pride in being a physical player. Number one, because that's all I know. But number two, I think as a group, the wide receivers group, as I started, getting older in my career, I made sure that, we were going to be the most physical group on the field. And, what better way to really impose your will and to put somebody on the ground, on a run play. So for me, and the group as a whole, we took pride in, really establishing our will, and making teams understand, like, you're going to have to account for us in the running game. We're not doing any runoffs. We're going to get right in your face. So I took pride in that.
And Kris, the Streaking the Lawn All-Decade team, did you actually see that recently, that you got named to the Streaking the Lawn All-Decade team?
No, I didn't see that, man. Where did you see that at?
I'll have to send you the link. Streaking the Lawn actually made an All-Decade team, and they named you on their list of receivers. You're on there, as well as Hassis Dubois and Olamide Zaccheaus. And I was like, that's pretty cool, man, because you're definitely one of the all-time greats in Virginia football history. There's no question about it. So I was pretty happy that they honored you with that. I'll have to send you the link to that.
No, that'll be sweet, man. I definitely have no regret for my time at UVA. And like I said earlier, when we were talking about college choices, I think that for me, it was a no-brainer. And, if anybody asked, it was the greatest time, I could have had, in the college experience and being in that college town, man. I love everything about UVA.
What are you doing now job-wise, Kris?
Yeah, so I actually transitioned. I work in the IT field as an enterprise account rep for Verizon business. So, fortunately for me, my mom was the IT director for, one of the towns local here in Central Virginia. So her wanting to know and, knowledge in the IT space kind of piqued my interest. So once I left New York, left the Jets and moved down to DC for a little bit, I wanted to get into the IT field. So I started, in the IT sales and just kind of worked my way up through the ladder. So now I was being a senior enterprise rep for Verizon Business, really handling, the Virginia, North Carolina accounts, some of the largest customers for Verizon. So, I mean, it's great, man. I love what I do. It's a lot different than, running routes and catching passes, but, it definitely challenged me in the same, to make sure that, I'm performing at the highest level that I can.
That's awesome, Kris. Who all of your old teammates do you keep in touch with the most?
Well, I keep in touch with a bunch, man. Tim Smith. We keep in touch pretty frequently. Max Million, Dom Joseph, Rodney McLeod.
Rodney McLeod. You mentioning Rodney, I tell you, man, Rodney McLeod, I'm so happy that he's done so well in the NFL. But I'll be honest, Kris, I never would have imagined him doing as well as he has, that's just the honest, opinion. I figured he was going to get a shot, for sure. But man, he has improved so much throughout his whole NFL career. I'm just so happy for Rodney McLeod because, he was a great player at Virginia, but man, I never would have guessed for him to be as good and for as long as he has. Good for him.
Yeah, no, he's definitely he was one of my old roommates during my last year there at UVA. So we got a lot closer during that last year. But his work ethic was bar none. And I knew that all he needed was an opportunity. I think that he was definitely a well-rounded football player. And he's going to continue to kind of let the naysayers know, look, he can ball. He's had a great career thus far, and I'm excited to see what he brings, to the table next year, which I'm sure he's going to deliver again. So yeah, he's it's a warming story, to hear people, kind of oversee some of the expectations, but I'm sure, it's right in line to where he figured he would be, coming out of college. So
yeah,
hats off.
Pretty impressive NFL career out of Rodney McLeod. He's always making plays every single year, man. He is just a beast.
That's the name of the game, and he's always been like a ball hawk and, really been a student of the game. So, you give him a scouting report and some film, you're going to have a problem on your hands, come game day. So, again, hats off to Rodney, holding it down.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to me, Kris. I really appreciate you spending the time on my podcast, and it's been awesome to talk with a Cavalier football legend, man. You all put so much hard work, effort, and blood, sweat, and tears into the program. It's just great to share all these memories with you guys from a diehard college football fan like myself.
No, man, I can't thank you enough for having me, Wade. And one of the things, I definitely wish I would have had a better chance to say was, I appreciate all of the, the support. You invited me out. The fans definitely made it all worthwhile. Those two-a-days and, just, when you come to the hotel in Wyoming or wherever and you see UVA flags, it really does, lift the spirit and make you feel like you're right back at home. So, from all the players, to the fans, man, we definitely appreciate it.
That's awesome, Kris. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
For me, man, like I said, I definitely wish you had me back. I think it's a great conversation, and y'all love talking football, man. So, for me, I appreciate it again. Thanks for having me, and I'm sure as the world turns, there'll be a ton more topics for us to cover down in the near future.
All right, thanks a lot, Kris. Really appreciate you coming on, my man. All the best to you. Take care in New Jersey, my man.
Yeah, same to you. Have a great one.
See ya.
Bye.
Listening to the Flow Theory Podcast. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and TuneIn.